Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the recently passed the Human Immunodeficiency Virus and Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome Prevention and Control Bill 2014. To discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. Manoj Pardeshi, General Secretary, National Coalition of People Living with HIV in India, and Mr. Raman Chawla, Senior Advocacy Officer, Lawyers Collective. Now for the headlines. Bill intends to stop discrimination against HIV-affected persons. Provides for HIV-positive persons to be duty-bound to take precautions to curtail transmission of the virus. Exempts women from this clause, apprehending the violent impact of disclosure of their status. The government has set in motion a legislation to stop discrimination against HIV-affected persons. Government's intention is to extend the right to life to all those affected by HIV by providing them legal protection. The proposed law provides for imprisonment up to 2 years and hefty fine for violating the law.
People affected by human immunodeficiency virus will have protection of law against discrimination by others. The proposed new Human Immunodeficiency Virus and Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome Prevention and Control Bill 2014 provides this protection. The bill provides for the prevention and control of the spread of HIV and AIDS, for the protection of human rights of persons affected by HIV and other related problems.
People who are living it every day, it's an experience. I will give you an example. Before some time, a national leader in Madhya Pradesh, national leader of people living with HIV in Madhya Pradesh, met with an accident. He was not treated for 4 hours only because he was living with HIV. And hospital blatantly said, he's living with HIV, we don't have enough equipments for universal precautions. Doctors should have universal precautions, irrespective of HIV. They should consider everybody is HIV positive.
The HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Bill 2014 gives HIV positive and affected people the right to reside, move and occupy any public or private office. It expands the definition of HIV affected to include family members, siblings and those who are dependent on HIV positive individuals. According to the provisions, no person will be allowed to discriminate anyone with HIV positive. Any denial or discontinuation or any unfair treatment or isolation against HIV positive individuals will not be allowed. This exception will be only when an independent health expert gives in writing that the affected person will pose threat to those working. The bill also prohibits publishing and propagating materials that can hurt the feelings of those affected by HIV.
That infected and the affected will only be able to go ahead and fight for their stigma and discrimination using this HIV/AIDS bill if the government is able to give them free treatment. If the treatment is not there, if the government does not go ahead and openly say, yes, we will go ahead and give them complete and free treatment for all people living with HIV, and they are going ahead and using these words as far as possible, right, then the whole meaning of this bill is of no means to us.
The bill makes provisions to take mandatory consent of a person before conducting a test to check HIV. Mandatory consent will be exempted only in cases of a court order. Informed consent for an HIV test will not be required in case of screening by any licensed blood bank, a court order, medical research and epidemiological purposes where the HIV test is anonymous and not meant to determine the HIV status of a person. Establishments keeping records of information of HIV-positive persons shall adopt data protection measures. Activists working with HIV and affected people want the government to include mandatory free treatment clause in the bill. As on today, the bill is silent on any form of treatment. With camera person Sudipto, Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
The bill lists the various grounds on which discrimination against HIV-positive persons and those living with them are prohibited. These include the setbacks relating to employment, educational establishments, healthcare services, residing or renting property, standing for public or private office, and provision of insurance. My question to you, first of all, because you were part of the entire bill drafting and at that level, you were involved. Are we really equipped to handle? We have codified a few things, but are we really taking care of the entire gamut of things through this bill?
There are two key problems in the bill. One, I think Manoj will talk about. The first thing I will talk about is that this bill only protects the rights of HIV positive people and their family members. The bill does not protect the rights of most at-risk populations like sex workers, men having sex with men, injecting drug users, and transgender persons. They have been totally left out. Now, there is a reason why they should be covered. If you see the first draft of the bill in 2006, that bill was much more comprehensive, and it protected the rights of not only the HIV positive people but also the most at-risk populations.
Why do you think they were kept out?
Yeah, why they have been kept out, that only government can tell. But if you see the HIV program of our country, that program is also based on the same premise which the 2006 bill was, that if we have to control the spread of HIV, we have to protect the rights of HIV positive people and most at-risk populations. If we do not do this, we cannot control the spread of HIV. Actually, this will lead to the fueling of the epidemic.
Right. Well, what's your input on this? There's certain section who should have been brought into the ambit have not been brought in. How could that have been done? Why was it left out? And why do they need to be brought into the ambit?
Before starting this, I just want to say one thing. That first of all, people living with HIV, like, we are not the cause of the epidemic. We are the outcome of the epidemic.
Correct.
That is one thing. Second thing, HIV is a disease where why we need to protect our human dignity, human rights, and because it's not just like other diseases. And HIV has faced lots of stigma. People are stoned to death. People has burned alive. Their property has been denied. Their fundamental rights has been denied at each and every level. No hospital, after 20 years of intervention also, you take any metro city, you take any small hospital, the treatment is denied for the HIV positive person. Just on the ground out, that person is HIV positive. And our submission is that what will happen if this happens? This will take the entire community underground. People will not come for test. People will not come forward. And if we don't know who is HIV positive, who is not, how can you control the epidemic? This law is actually going to help the entire prevention aspect of the country's HIV response. This law will actually encourage people, those who are HIV positive, to come forward and accept that yes, we are positive, we are getting the treatment, and now we are not spreading this infection.
That doesn't seem to be happening.
Yes, it has to be happening.
Do you feel?
Yeah, no,
That's a very, very major point that he has made. Manoj has very succinctly told us that the entire purpose is not being met.
Yeah, if you see how the network saw it, and that is the correct way also, that for networks, this bill was to provide free and complete treatment. That is what the network of people living with HIV/AIDS in India was looking this bill for all these years, starting from 2002, when the process started in 2002. And
Isn't that the right thing to do?
That is the right thing to do, exactly.
Yeah.
But the bill which got tabled in the parliament is not doing it. Section 14(1) of the bill says that the government should provide treatment to HIV positive people, that is antiretroviral treatment and treatment of opportunistic infections as far as possible. That the terms as far as possible completely dilutes the chapter on treatment. There is no obligation on the state to provide treatment, that means.
Correct.
The government can say, okay, we'll provide it if it's possible. If it's not possible, we'll not do it. It does not talk about diagnostics at all. Diagnostics have been totally left out. And even ARVs and OI treatment is as far as possible. So this is not what we're looking for in the chapter of treatment all these years. And I have been gone through the process in all these years, starting from the 2006 draft. This is not how this bill was drafted. If you see the 2006 draft, it has a very comprehensive and good chapter on treatment, talking about free and complete treatment to HIV positive people.
I'll now get into the disclosure not mandatory, which you've already touched upon. One impact you've already said, but the positive impact as far as engaging with the larger community is concerned, do you see a positive change for those people in that perspective?
Definitely. Let me give you some example. Like we are leading this movement since last more than 15 years. And when there was no treatment also, people are giving interviews in the news. People are bringing their issues in front of the people. We are actually working towards increasing the social acceptance part. Because of this HIV is attached with sex, there is a huge stigma. And it's our role to give face, voice to this epidemic, and so that the social acceptance can be got increased. If like one of the things like India claiming globally, we have achieved a 50% reduction in HIV infection. And let me tell you on this platform, this is happened because people living with HIV, people with a key population, men having sex with men, FHW, they came forward and took charge of their
Movement.
Response. And the whole thing has happened because human rights was at the center. And government's LACO, the National AIDS Control Program, also recognized this, that this is happened because of this contribution. You tell me any other disease where the TB person is coming and telling to the world like how to prevent from TB.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I'll bring in on the disclosure, not mandatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Voluntary disclosure.
How does that help? Because I think that's a very big
That is a very important issue, and if you see with the human rights ambit, that is it. That everybody has a right to decide what should be done to his body, and okay. I would like to discuss two issues here. Then I will start with informed consent, and then I will come to disclosure. One of the first things is informed consent, and that is a very good part of the bill, that nobody can be tested without his informed consent.
Correct.
There has to be a pre-test counseling and a post-test counseling. After that, if the person gives consent, then only he can be tested. Then other is disclosure. That whatever his status is should not be told to the other person without his consent. If you start telling to the other people, like anybody without the person's consent, we know the amount of stigma and discrimination there is in the field of HIV. If the doctors tell the family members like that your son is HIV positive, in India it can easily happen that the family might just throw the child out.
Correct. I'll come back to you on this. It's time for us to head into a break. When we come back, we will talk about other provisions relating to precautions from transmission. Welcome back. The bill makes provisions for HIV positives to be duty-bound in taking precautions to curtail transmission of the virus. The bill exempts women from this clause, apprehending the violent impact of disclosure of their status.
The government's attempt is to sensitize the individuals and institutions considering the nature of the disease. The legislation seeks to make affected people duty-bound to prevent the transmission of the disease by making a provision in the HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Bill 2014.
You are HIV positive.
The proposed bill has exempted women from mandatory voluntary disclosure, apprehending that such information may result in violence, abandonment, or actions that have severe negative impact on physical, mental, or health safety of such women and their children.
lot of children face stigma because their parents were living with HIV. And right now there is no legal provision to take action against them. Children who are affected by HIV will have right to property, and that's a big thing. The future can also be kind of affected positively because of this legislation.
According to the provisions, central government and state governments will have to take steps to protect the property of children of those affected by HIV. It allows HIV-affected persons to be the guardians of affected fellows if they agree. The bill allows the state government to appoint an ombudsman to oversee the implementation of the provisions of the Act. Ombudsman will be empowered to investigate and initiate matters relating to protecting the rights of HIV-positive persons. All those who violate the provisions will have to face imprisonment for a minimum of 3 months to a maximum of 2 years and fine up to 1 lakh or both.
We have seen in many cases where a person living with HIV, when he is employed and due to some rhyme or reason he has to go ahead and disclose his status, he has risked his job and in certain cases has lost his job as well. In most of the scenarios with not many jobs in hand, because most of the people living with HIV are from the lower strata of the society, they're mostly unskilled. So it becomes difficult for him to go ahead and look for another job.
The bill makes it mandatory for all institutions to keep details of those affected with HIV in secrecy. The bill makes a provision to promote a national AIDS policy for all organizations in the country. It will be the responsibility of both state and central governments to provide antiretroviral therapy and opportunistic infection management to people living with HIV or AIDS. The HIV and AIDS bill, which is pending in the parliament, will be the first of its kind discussion which will be debated on the discrimination part of any disease. After independence, this is the only legislation where the government is trying to implement any mechanism for any disease. With camera person Sudipto, Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
According to the provisions, every HIV-infected or affected person below the age of 18 years has the right to reside in a shared household and enjoy the facilities of the household. The human right aspect we've already addressed. The 2 points I really want to get into it, and very quickly because we've limited time, is first the grievance redressal mechanism and the children aspect, which you were touching upon, but I will start at, I would want you to contribute on that. Children of HIV-affected persons. That is a huge grey area that needs to be corrected. Does this bill really do justice to that?
Actually, there were so many changes in the bill. The proposed bill, which we have actually thought for years and years, and I really don't know the current version of the bill which is presented. Maybe that Raman is the right person to talk on.
When it comes to children issues, I will say I am pretty happy about it. It has provisions which was there in the 2006 draft, and those provisions have not been diluted. So that is one thing I can say we are happy about. It talks about protection of property of children affected by HIV. It talks about guardianship of the older siblings. So it the major provisions which were there for children are there. So
I'll get you in on the second.
I'll just about one thing. Just one thing I would like to say is which we wanted and which is not there in the bill right now is lowering the age of informed consent. We have been demanding for lowering the age of informed consent from 18 to at least 16. And that is not there. So that is one provision I would like to highlight, which we think should have been there.
Because these provisions have already been accepted as far as the sexuality part is concerned by high courts. They've already brought down the age from 18 to 16. Exactly. So I don't see why this bill could not have incorporated that. Second is on the exemption, the grievance redressal mechanism. See, if a person goes to some place, he is denied on the basis of some whims and fancies or notions, and he wants to contest it. Okay? This is the law that is there to protect him. How do you see it panning out for him? Do you see him standing in court and going back to the same grind of 3 levels of appeal? Or do you see him being able to get his human rights just because a bill has been passed? How do you see it happening?
I will just like to highlight one or two case studies before that. People who has been gone to court is there because of the system, because of the non-absence of this bill, they have given up. They have given up. Most of the people are actually even died because of the delay in the judgment. And the questions which has basically come
In the courts.
Yeah, it's embarrassing and
Demeaning.
Demeaning. So it's actually affecting the dignity of the person, and it's not that easy to stand in the public and tell, yes, I am a diabetic, because diabetic is a status symbol.
Yeah.
Person who is HIV positive cannot stand in a public and say, oh yes, I am HIV positive. So we have to give a certain whether it is HIV positive or whether it is not, as a citizen of the country, that person has the each and every rights
To be. I'll get you in. Manoj. On the same aspect, bill, all said and done, good effort, you can go on writing pages about it.
Yeah.
On the ground level, how do you see it panning out? On as far as human rights, that is the main focus here, ensuring that they get their due. It is the same legal process that everyone will have to follow.
See,
Any
there
other
is a lot of
person-
stigma and discrimination in our country, and I will honestly say that this law overnight will not change that. Children are being discriminated, people are being discriminated in jobs. A law cannot change this overnight. But I always feel that the law is the first and a very important step in that process. You need a law. A law will not change it, but yes, you need a law to make the things happen over a period of time.
Correct. Now, the second aspect was the women not disclosure of women. Is there a contradiction between the point we made on the women not, they can kind of keep it behind curtains. There is no need for them to voluntarily disclose. Juxtapose it with prevention activity. Do you see a contradiction between the two?
When it comes to disclosure, nobody can be forced to disclose.
Correct.
People don't have to disclosure only has to be made with their informed consent. Doctor cannot go and tell to anybody without the consent of the person, for both men and women. There's a provision on partner notification.
Yes.
Should the partner of the HIV positive person can be told or not? The thing there is that if the doctor doesn't want, he doesn't tell the partner. But if the doctor decides that yes, the partner is at a very big risk, then he can go and tell the partner. But for that also, there are certain protocols which have to be followed. Now, when it comes to women, and and there's a case that if the doctor tells this to the partner of the woman, like the husband, and this might lead to violence and abandonment of woman and her children. In that case, doctor cannot tell the partner. This is to protect the woman and also the children. Because there are enough cases we get where when the husband comes to know that the woman is HIV positive, the woman is thrown out, the children are thrown out, and it affects the health of both women and the children.
Correct. That's the point that I wanted you to elaborate upon. And moving on, my colleague Raj Kamal Rao spoke to Mr. R.N. Tandon, member Indian Medical Association, to get his insight.
See, there are so many places where you are discriminated by so many things. Maybe caste, maybe the creed, maybe your job, maybe your profile. There is a discrimination. What is happening? You are not able to control those simple things. And when you talk about HIV in a place, workplace, HIV positive person is working and that he is being discriminated. It will be a very difficult job to get evidence that someone like CEO or anybody who is heading the department is discriminating, or even the co-workers are discriminating. And I don't know why government is thinking on this term, because there are already ads where people are shown if you are discriminating, then the whole group of the office worker is fighting against the CEO why you are discriminating.
Family members who are affected by HIV, now they come under HIV affected category. How do you identify that and maintaining them, and how do you ensure that all these fellows who are working in any office are not discriminated?
Most important thing, when we are talking that you have to look after the kids and the family and to everybody. What has been seen, the poor class is suffering much more because of HIV infection. And what government is doing to provide services to them, to look after their livelihood, how they will spend their life in later stages if they are all positive. Because the government has to come out with some proposal that there is some fund or some agency who is going to look after the needs of all these persons.
Yes, Manoj, you wanted to add a point on this.
I just want to add one point to the viewers basically. Like by bringing this HIV/AIDS bills, we actually lead the process towards the prevention. And this will ensure and enhance the efforts of prevention.
Correct. Right. And you wanted to...
Okay, Amritanshu, you're talking about the legal process and it taking years. This bill has a provision on health ombudsman, which says that if the person is discriminated in the hospital, he can go and file a complaint with the health ombudsman at the state level, and the health ombudsman can do the inquiry and he can pass the orders. There are just two things. We think the health ombudsman at the state level might be less. You should have like maybe one or more health ombudsman in a state, or maybe at a district level. That's important. The other thing is there has to be an emergency clause. And the person is discriminated in a healthcare setting, the health ombudsman cannot take like 15 days or 20 days to pass orders. The person requires emergency relief. So there should be an emergency clause saying that the health ombudsman should pass orders within 24 hours.
Thank you, sir, for joining us on this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the RSTV page of YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Raj Sabha TV.